Okay, thank you. And so our first talk of this session is by Wayan Arka on externally and internally related clauses in Marori, and the handout is coming.
Okay, so while handouts going around, so today I would like to talk about two kinds of relative clauses in Marori, part of my ongoing project. The part of this that's still kind of working in progress, in particular the semantic restriction of internally headed relative clauses later on. Hopefully that you can give me some kind of feedback at some point. So this is the outline of the talk. To begin, I'll give you some background on the language and an overview of the morpho syntax of this language, and then I'll move to basic facts about relative clauses in this language, the marking, the types, and the relations that can be relativized, and then move on to the analysis of the relative clauses in this language. So Marori is a Papuan language spoken in West Papua, Indonesian Papua, around 20 kilometers east of Merauke. This is the island in Indonesia. Okay. It's a highly endangered language with fluent speakers, around a dozen of them, and around 30 semi-speakers, fluent speakers. The main points that I want to show here is that, first of all, Marori seems to be unusual in that it has all of the relative clause types in one system. So you have externally headed, internally headed, single or double headed, or pre or post head relative clause, and also kind of headless, and it's possible also to have it detached from the noun head. All grammatical functions can be relativized, and there is an intriguing property of the internally headed relative clause in that you can have agreement and ambiguity, and also in some cases you can have non-ambiguous reading depending on the noun types. So let's go first with the overview of Marori syntax. Morpho syntax. Marori is basically a final language. You can have flat structure in terms of the core clause structure, but then you can also have this free order at the level of the core clause structure, but we will see later on. In fact, Marori has kind of more in the extended clause structure, you have configurational structure with the CP structure for the relative clause that I will talk about in a moment. So this is just goes through examples showing that Marori has the flagging, the arguments are flagged in terms of the roles, in particular the undergoer arguments are flagged with E, so you will be sick, so the argument ka, you is flagged with the clitics. And then the free NPs can be omitted, but then cross-referenced by the agreement. The undergoer has the prefix. For example, in this particular case, you will be 6. You have ku, cross-referencing ka. And then when you have transitive like bite, the ka here refers to the undergoer, the object, and you don't have the free NP. This is more examples showing that agentive NP, like for example for the verb like run, cannot be marked by the undergoer critic E. The verbal morphology is highly complex, showing agreement, tense aspect, mood, and also the agreement showing gender. So the gender is expressed by the vowel quality for the masculine. For example, in this particular example, I saw a small kangaroo in the forest. You have T Ben, well, A refers to a third person singular masculine. But if it is a female one, you have Ta via Bon. So you get this vowel harmony going on there. Because we are going to talk about nominal structure, there is evidence that we have a DP in this language. As I said, the language is head final, so you can have the determiner typically coming at the end of the nominal structure. But the language also has this free word order, so you can have just swap the NP and the determiner. So the determiner can come before the noun or after the NP, but it cannot intervene, for example, with inside the possessive phrase. Now we move on to basic facts about relative clauses in Marori. So I'll go through the definition of relative clauses, the markers of the relative clause, and the types and the constraints later on. So definition. So a subordinate relative clause is a subordinate clause which delimits the reference of an NP by specifying the role. So the idea of providing information to specify the reference. Salient properties of relative clause which become object of investigations include the structure and marking of relative clauses, the strategy to encode the dependency, whether it's gapping or not, and also the semantics. Okay, so we'll look at what happens in Marori in terms of the marking. The markers of relative clauses in Marori kind of making use of the demonstrative. Okay, the demonstrative is part of this dexis, complex one in Marori. So you have this distal, semi-distal, and the proximal dexis on the dimension, and also in terms of the numbers, you have singular, non-singular, and the neutral one. Okay, and then the relativizers take the proximal forms, kv, kmd, and kmi. So you see, you have the k here and you have the p here, which encodes the relative distance of entities with respect to the speakers. And this is just to show the pronominal system in this language. So you have the k and the relative clause kme comes from, for example, the k and kv come from k and av. Okay, so you have the neutral one kme and also the number, the relative clause marker which carries the number feature. Just skip that example because we will see more example later on. And now in terms of topology, you can have this in terms of the headedness. Okay, so relative clause can be headed depending on whether you have the head noun present. So the tick here shows that we do have that in Marori. So you have the headed relative clauses, headless relative clauses. Okay, so in terms of the position, whether it is in terms of how many head do you have, you can have single-headed relative clause. You do have that in Marori, and you have double-headed relative clauses. In terms of the position of the head, it can be external to relative clause or internal to relative clause. We'll talk more about the internally headed relative clause later on, because that would be kind of interesting to look at the constraints involved in the formation of relative clause. In terms of the relative order of relative clause, you can have pre-head and also post-head. And Marori does have those kind of types. I'll give you examples for these types of relative clause in a moment. Now let's go through examples. So talking about the externally headed relative clause, examples in A, this is the one where you have the relative clause is within the nominal structure. Okay, within the nominal structure. So I underline this one for your convenience. But you can also have the relative clause detached from the nominal structure. So the person whose wife I gave money yesterday has come here. So you can have the relative clause coming after the verb. It's kind of detached from the nominal structure. Okay? And then this is the internally headed relative clause. What is intriguing here is that you can have ambiguity. All right? So you can, in this particular example with the verb hit, you have arguments, the agent, na, the undergo, the object, bends, dance, and also the instruments. Then you can have, in this case, you have two readings. The object can be picked up as the relativized noun or the instrument. Okay, the traditional, the bands that I hit with the club is damaged, or the club that with which I hit the bands is damaged. Okay, so in theory, na can be potentially can be relativized, but because of the clash with the matrix agreement, it cannot be relativized. But also there is another constraint later on. Okay, and then in natural text, you can also have. Let's skip this one. More example. In natural text, you can have relative clauses without a relativizer. Okay, you can drop a relativizer, in which case, and then it's not quite clear whether you have, and then it gives rise to kind of internally headed relative clause. Or sometimes it's maybe just you have two separate clauses actually. The position of relativizer, it cannot come at the clause final position. I just skip that one. I'll skip this one. A headless relative clause commonly found in natural text, where you can have the copula also drop. For example, this is an example from natural text. Ketisa reme antara. So the one who is standing is a soldier. So the B T here is dropped. Okay, that's the example of headless relative clause. Okay, so now let's go through different kinds of roles that can be relativized. So in Marori, you can have argument and non-argument relativized. There are examples here. We just want to point out examples which are kind of more interesting to look at. So this is subject relativization, object relativization. What I want to show you here is the relativization of three arguments of three-place predicate. Here, just this one, perhaps. Okay. The point that I want to show here is that relativization in Marori cannot be fully accounted for in terms of filler gap dependency, because you can have a mismatch between the relativized NP, the matrix NP, and also the one that comes inside the relative clause. So let's look at this example. So this is a free sentence. I fill the yam into the basket. Pay attention to this guy, Uluadku. So the agent or oblique in Marori is flagged or marked by the postposition, Uluadku. And then the B, the examples in B, is the one which is the relativized structure where the locative is relativized. The basket into which I fill the yam has been full. Okay. Note here that you do not have any position inside the relative clause. So you have the NP, the noun here, and then you have the locative that is kind of gap here, but there is no postposition. Okay, so this means that relative clause should be handled in a kind of a structure that's more abstract rather than kind of filler gap dependency in terms of the overt encoding of the arguments or the dependence of the relative clause there. Okay. So, but then there's a possibility that the postposition can be also left-stranded. We'll see more examples later on. So I can just skip this one and showing the examples in 28 where agents can be rectified. Okay. So in these particular examples, you have I ate food with the spoon. This is a free clause, and then B is the example with relativizations. The spoon that I ate the food with was missing, and as you see, the postposition G can be left-stranded here. So it's possible in this language that an adjunct and oblique, which is obligatory marked by a postposition, can have its positional marker left-stranded or completely kind of drop in this language. Okay. Relativization is also possibly rectified in this language. So just to summarize what I have just said, so in Marori you can have externally headed relative clause, internally headed relative clause, and all of the arguments and also agents can be relativied in this language. Now let's move on to the analysis and a bit of more discussion on the constraints of relative clauses in this language. So what I want to do now is to show you the internal structure of the relative clause, and then the LFG analysis, how we capture the constraints. In particular, how can we kind of capture the fact that the noun can be picked up from the inside relative clause. All right. So looking at the internal structure of nominals and relative clause, there is evidence that the relative clause has this extended clausal structure. That is to say, the core clause can be freely ordered, the elements within the core clause can be freely ordered. You can have S here, but then you can have an extended clause structure of a CP, okay, which follows kind of X bar syntax, with respect CP filled in by possibly a phrase, in this particular case a word here, yesterday, and this word yesterday, the table on which I slept yesterday still modifies the relative clause. So you want to say that this is still part of the relative clause. Okay, and then you can have the noun have the head here, the relative clause head joins bends, and then you can have the determinant part of this whole nominal structure. Okay, and the internally headed relative clause has the same structure basically as the externally headed relative clause. The only difference is that the internally headed relative clause does not have the nominal structure, the matrix structure of the nominal does not have any branching here. So you do not have the branching of the DP or NP because the head is just picked up from the inside relative clause. So we can abbreviate this one like this one. Okay, so this is just the simple representation of the internally headed relative clause. All right. So that's the C structure, of the externally headed and internally headed relative clause in Marori. And then we can capture with that structure the fact that in Marori, the definite marker, the determiner, which provides definite marking to the relativized nouns, comes outside the noun, outside the relative clause. So that bird which I brought here, so that shows up outside the relative clause, but it modifies bird inside the relative clause. Okay, you have internally headed relative clause, but the determiner modifying the noun comes outside the relative clause. Okay, and this is the one where we have a headless relative clause, but then you have definite one here. So the one which I brought here. Okay. So when it is headless, it's unclear whether we have an externally headed or internally headed relative clause. So we have the C structure, the phrase structure of relative clause, and now we are ready to move on with the fact that the internally headed relative clause can give rise to ambiguity. Okay, how we can capture that ambiguity? So what we do is to have the specification of lexical entries of the relative clause. Okay, the relativizer. Sorry. Okay, and also we have to provide the necessary equation on the C structure so that we can capture the constraints of the relative clause. First, the lexical entries. So I propose the lexical entry for the relativizer, like this one. I just put two of them here. One is the relativizer keme, which is neutral in terms of the agreement that we check. So you have this index, which is which captures the agreement, which says that I do not impose any agreement of referential features, but clearly I am a C of the type C, so that can plug into the C structure with the one we just talked about, but it imposes that I should be part of this, should agree with singular kind of noun, okay? And then it also comes with the specification that it is a pronominal, it is referential. Okay, so the relativizer is referential. This is to capture the fact that when there is no nouns, then it can by itself, referential. So this is to capture the headless relative clause. But then, crucially, it is optional in the way that when the pred value, the referential, the semantic form of the nominal already available from a noun, then it does not apply. And then it says that I'm a relative marker, okay? And then also we wanna say that a relative clause is giving associated with information structure that the relativized noun, it also bears focus, okay? So this is information coming from the lexical entry. And now from the C structure annotation, we should ensure that agreement is imposed, okay? And that the matrix and DP can select or share the right semantic content of the relativized noun phrase. So what we can do, we can put the equation something like this, okay? This is for the sentence 34, which is ambiguous, okay? So this equation, the DP with subject, comes from the matrix DP. The subject in this example, because it is subject, the subject of the whole clause here, okay? So what is important for our analysis here to make sure that the information goes to the right place is that we have the first line says that I'm an adjunct, so relative clause is an adjunct, okay? And then also says that this is optional, the second line, pred, up pred, ejang, GF pred, meaning that if there is no pred from the DP, so I will get my pred value from any grammatical function below me, from my dot, okay, no way, something like that, okay? And then also it imposes the agreement. So it's not any NP from here, but also the one that, you know, agrees with certain things here, okay? So giving that equation and also other information coming from the lexical entries, and then we can have this kind of F structure. Thank you. That is to say, the reading one means that the reading one is the one that the bench, the object, is rectifies. Okay, so you will have this. Okay, so you share the pred here with the pred from the GF, which is GF object here. The object is also focused, so means that the rectifies is the bench. Okay, and impose the index, the third person singular, and this gives you reading A. Okay, but it's possible that you can have this with number 4 here, the tag for the instrument. Okay, so that's very straightforward. So the LFG mechanism and machinery here kind of provide you with a necessary tool to do that, and that's quite straightforward, I think. Now, the most, a bit more difficult to handle, and I think I would not give you the formal way of handling that, but I think the idea is like this. When I check, it's puzzling to begin with to see how this happens, but it appears that semantic explanation can kind of, you know, give you a way to make sense of the data. So it seems to me that derivative clauses, internally headed derivative clauses in Marori is of the restrictive type. That is to say, they come with non-specific indefinite force. Okay. Not presupposing a definite specific denotation at the matrix level. 3 minutes, okay. And then more evidence comes from the fact that you can have stacking of the internally headed derivative clauses, and also the constraints that you cannot rectify proper name or definite nouns within internally headed derivative clause. Okay, let's go through examples. So you can have internally headed derivative clause, but still having this indefinite, non-specific. You look for a child who wants to stay together with me. So you have this indefinite reading, but it's kind of specific. It's possible to have that with internally headed derivative clause. You can have quantifiers over a definite NPs with internally headed derivative clause, but those quantifiers must go outside the derivative clause. So go at the matrix position, okay? Like this one, 40 and 41, okay? And then you can have stacking. So you can have something like this one. Yesterday I was looking for a person that the dog bit that ran away. So you can stack more and more derivative clauses here, meaning that internally headed derivative clauses in Marori kind of non-restrictive in nature. So you can have just like ejang, you can have add more and more. Okay, so this is considered one of the property of internally headed derivative clause by Groshu here. He publishes a lot about this stuff. So it seems to me that would point out to the idea that derivative clauses in Marori is restrictive in nature. And then if you have two NPs, one is quantified by all, and then suddenly you cannot have ambiguous meaning. Okay, so in this sentence, the only reading possible is the people who give money to all the children already went away. So you have the subject person, okay, it's not quantified, but the children quantified here, and then only the agent can be the one that is ratified. The people who give the money to all children already went away. Okay. Also, when you have proper name, one of them proper name, for example, in this example, the verb is see here, ifef. Okay, so the seer, Marcus, and Bosiki is the thing seen, the object. So what you have here is the pig that Marcus saw ran off. You cannot have Marcus who saw the pig ran off. Okay. 1 minute old. Okay. So what happened when you have pronominal? So you cannot rectify a pronoun, but if you forced to do that, if you want to do that, what you have to do is to repeat that one. Okay, so you have, like in D, for example, I who saw the pig ran off, even though usually the pig ran off because the pig scared of human being. In that context, pigs usually slaughtered by humans, so the pig ran away. But if you want to say that I who saw the pig, for example, the pig so big and then you ran away, and then you should repeat that one, which gives rise a double-headed relative clause. Okay, so I who saw the pig ran off. So you should repeat the pronominal. Okay, so you have the double-headed relative clause. Okay, so almost done. So 1 minute. Less than 1 minute now. The summary. So Marori is perhaps unusual as far as its relative clause topology is concerned. It has almost all the types of relative clauses. Okay, and the complexity of relative clauses in Marori, you can have agreement, complex agreement, ambiguity, but suddenly you cannot have ambiguity. It depends on whether you have pronoun or proper name. Okay, and also quantification coming in. Then if you think about the complex interaction between morphosyntax and semantics and the reference, yesterday we talked about definiteness, something that I learned, and I'll incorporate that later on in my paper at some point. So I hope that the relative clauses in Marori, the facts that I just presented, contribute to this empirical basis if you want to study more about the topology of relative clauses. And I hope that I can do kind of that toward that end. And there is more work to do and looking at more text, because you have different types of relative clauses and how they the distribution of relative clauses in Marori. Okay, I think just stop there. Thank you.
We have about 12 minutes for discussion. Questions?
I had a question about the structures in 31. These are internal structure of relative clauses. Keep going back. It's the example number 31 on the slide.
31.
So I was wondering, in these, can you fill the spec position of these like you could in the other ones? Or are you showing in this that you actually can't fill that spec position? Like spec CP position. They had filled by things like, I think, yesterday and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can have yesterday here, but this is an abbreviation. Yeah.
Right. Okay,
yeah.
so these weren't meant to show that you couldn't fill that position,
Yeah.
just to simplify it,
That's
easier for
simplified.
us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no sense, all of these ones, that spec CP position is open for modification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
That's good. Yeah. You have more?
I can ask another
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. On 32,
Up to this one?
yeah, I found this very interesting and unusual.
Yeah, yeah.
And how do we know that the determiner comes from bird? I mean, is it agreement facts or
Yes. Also, yeah.
that's like it's the?
Well,
it seems very unusual to raise a determiner out of an S and C.
yeah, and also because you only have two arguments here, so na can na and uji, okay, and then if efi, of course, then because this is singular, but this noun you have nouns in Marori generally. You have general nouns, do not have inflected in terms of number, but certain nouns can be plural or singular. So in this particular case, it makes the space the reference of the bird specific. So that bird, definitely, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, and there's no sense in which it could be modifying the relative pronoun, which in turn is linked to the nominal. I don't know if this would make me feel any better. It just seems very unusual to have the determiner outside.
But is it, yeah, just like quantifiers, whatever it is, it can be outside and still modify something here. So yeah, that's a fact. Yeah. Good. Ron?
Along the same lines, could it possibly be okay to have a determiner inside with bird?
Yes.
So the one on the outside is optional? Or what if,
yes, you can
both?
have inside here.
Yeah.
Yes, it's possible to have it inside. The same. But then if you have it inside, then you cannot rectify it in a way.
So then it's ambiguous, or what? Because then you don't know what's been relativized? Is the absence of the determiner inside?
Okay. Okay. But then you are talking about when it is. Okay. In this particular case, then it is hard to have inside. But I'm thinking of general. In general, you can have if you have two NPs. Two NPs. The determiner can be inside here. But in this particular case, because you wanna rectify this one, then it's a bit of a problem when you put it inside and rectifies it. Okay.
So then I have a technical comment on 35. This is a technical LFG notation.
Yep.
So the problem here is GF is kind of a cover symbol for any grammatical function. Mm-hmm. But you want it to be the same grammatical function for all of those in any given instance.
Yeah.
So you might want to say here up GF equals up focus, and then use up focus for all the other ones. So that you've pinned it down to want it to be a particular function.
Can you repeat it again?
Well, so you have up GF equals up focus.
Yeah.
So that's a place where you have chosen a GF, subject, object, whatever you chose, and you said that that's what the focus is going to be. That's your guess about what's going to be extracted. But then all the other equations there that have GF should have up focus instead of up GF. So that you know it's the same one.
Yeah. Do you need that one?
Yeah, because otherwise you could have up's object index is this, up's subject spread is pro, and up's
all the parts we scrambled all over the place on different grammatical functions.
Yeah, it's just a technical.
Yeah, it's a
technical. Yeah, I assume that because of the uniqueness, the one should be I don't know, but
no,
something will
it's
go
a technical point. But
to make sure that things go
right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yep. Okay. Good.
Time for more questions?
That's it. Okay.
While we're on this slide,
Okay.
I was curious whether I know in the implemented grammars we tend to have these like adjunct type equals relative to make them easier to read. Do you actually use that interpretation for anything? Or could you just read off sort of the F structure, the right semantics, and not need this type equals relative?
I'm not sure, but this is just my linguistic intuition to make sure that we capture the information. This is a relativizer, and then you may have different kinds of a young at some point. So do you have any problem with that?
I don't really have a problem. I was just wondering whether you had done this sort of in parallel with other grammars where we might not have thought carefully about this, or whether you actually needed, this was the one way to distinguish the semantics of these relatives from some other adjunct. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody working with internally headed relative clause, I would love to hear more.
So I don't really work on that, but you said you had internally added relative clauses and they are ambiguous. So in other languages where you have internally added relative clauses, you can disambiguate them by scrambling the relevant material to the front of the relative clause. So I think in Quechua this is possible. So if you have an ambiguous relative clause, internally headed, so like subject, object, and if you front the object over the subject, all of a sudden the ambiguity gets lost. Does something like that occur? Yes, well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you can put it in the front and making it kind of, externally, if you put something, or fronted something, you in effect, you have this externally headed, then, in a way, at least in this language. So the NP, if you put it in the front, especially in front of keme, if you have keme, like this one, and then put it in front, the whole structure interpreted as the focus of the matrix, in a way making it non-ambiguous. At least, I can double check. Yes. And then this, externally headed relative clause is not ambiguous, but only internally headed one. But when you...
But they still retain internally headed ones. So you would front the element below canon.
Let's say...
Yeah,
let's look at the structure like this one. Okay. So internally, is something from this is a relative clause. Okay. So this is DP. This DP can be, for example, an object, whatever, part of this clause. But if you take whatever it is here, from fronted here, so it is interpreted as externally headed by the whole clause. So in that way, ambiguity disappears. So I checked with that and kind of puzzled with that. Yeah.
So, are these long distance?
The problem, the problem with that, agreement, it's pronominal in a way. So it can kind of, have, it takes, it's pronominal anaphoric in a way. The mon, for example, it can take, this mon is not good because it's not a third person. Any third person, the agreement here functions as anaphoric. So it could be, something that it's not clear whether you have a gap or not in this relative clause. So the relative clause can take the antecedent further away. Is that your question?
So if you had complement inside the relative clause, WH movement kind of in other languages.
Movement is a bit of a problem here because you have as pronominal, the function of agreement as pronominal, it can be referential.
But how far down could it go?
I checked with the complement, at least one complement it can take up the nominal, but I assume that this is constraint of the processing, but I think because it's pronominal it can take long distance antecedent, I suppose, but yeah. No more questions.
Unless there are more questions.
Thank you.
Okay, then.